Hey guys, welcome to another photography debate here. Last time we talked about a very specific Peter Lik image. We were trying to debate whether or not it could be real and what aspects of it could actually be shot in camera and which ones were obviously faked. And this recently brought up another whole question of how far is too far when it comes to post-processing and retouching with different genres of photography. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's quickly go down the line and we'll introduce everybody. I'm Lee Morris. I'm one of the owners of Fstoppers. Patrick in the middle here, the other owner.
Also an owner of Fstoppers. David works with us.
Yeah. And then we have a new guy here. This is Keith Bradshaw. He's a buddy of ours here in Charleston, South Carolina. He does a lot of video work here in town. And he always likes to debate with us and tell us we're wrong on Fstoppers. And so before we made this video, I thought, I'll just invite you over here. You can argue to our face.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. So let's first talk about this Peter Lik image. It's now come out that some of Peter Lik's images, when they are selling these shots, if you ask, they will admit that the shots are composited. And people have specifically asked about this shot, and they've said that it is a composite. So the question then is, do we have a problem with the shot if the photographer is a landscape photographer and they are naturally or honestly saying it's a composite, it was made in Photoshop?
I mean, I feel like for any shot like that, when it comes to fine art or whatever, like the artist has freedom. If the premise is that most of the shots are not composited and there's not some clear disclaimer, I have a problem with like sneaking a few in if it's not like kind of well known. Like I feel like it's a matter of expectation of if the photographer is known for not doing composites and then sets that trend and then all of a sudden starts sneaking them in, then I feel like that's a problem.
That's exactly the way I feel too. I have you can do whatever you want with your pictures or paintings or music, whatever you want to do. It's art, go as crazy as you want. But when you're selling something because it appears to be real and people are putting down real money because they think it's real, that's where I draw that line. And Keith, when I brought this up to you earlier today, you were saying, yeah, I don't have a problem with it as long as people say that it's fake. And I said, okay, well, why didn't he make Saturn the size of the moon there? Why didn't he put two moons there? He's riding this line where he wants it to be realistic, but at the same time it's a composite. So do you see a line there with landscape photography in particular?
I certainly see a line, and if he wants to put Saturn on there, that's great. It just, it's not one shot. It's just Photoshop.
Right.
And that was when I called you, when I went halfway through your last video, and where do you guys even, there's no debate. I mean, this is a Photoshopped moon. There's no way you could get that photo in the camera. It's not like Ansel Adams where he's standing on top of his car with red filters and getting everything just right, maybe a little dodging and burning. I mean, those are layers. Those are two different images.
Sure,
and they may be layers that have been used multiple times
in other images. Exactly. Well, you bring up Ansel Adams. This is what everybody goes to when we talk about like the beauty of real photography is Ansel Adams was the king and he never cheated and everything. But isn't it true that even he was doing everything that was possible back in the day in Lightroom to make his pictures as exciting as possible?
In the dark room.
In the dark room. Right, but
not Lightroom. But no, I don't think he was not. Because he could have taken the enlarger and made the moon larger and then like exposed. He could have done exactly what Peter Lik or other landscape photographers are doing. Right. Just because he had an enlarger in a dark room, it's easy to be like, he did everything he could have, but the technology wasn't there. No, he could have exposed a larger moon where he needed to, but he did do every trick in the book besides that.
Okay, so is that your only issue? Like, what if the moon in that shot was a realistic size, but it's just Photoshopped right
I
in?
might fall even further than you guys on this argument. I kind of do not care if it's real or fake at all. Like, I look at it and I'm like, that moon looks ridiculous, and to me it cheapens the work of Peter Lik because I know that that's what more amateur photographers do to impress people by making the moon really big. And so for me, it's like, that's clearly not a real moon and it kind of cheapens the whole work.
But outside of
So
that,
you do care.
So yeah, is that situational then? Because like
it cheapens it for me. But like, if people are out there buying his work for $20,000, I'm like, more power to them. Like, if the general population and followers of his work love it, go for it.
So here's the question then: if the moon was replaced with Saturn,
I still would have no problem with it.
I understand, but would it be selling as well as it does with the moon being that large and it being somewhat believable, especially
I think that's the seed of the debate here, is would his fans and people that collect his work say, it's another amazing shot and I love that it's Saturn, I've never seen anything like it. It's a composite, whatever that means in their mind as a non-photographer. Maybe they would love it because he's built up this work. But for us, I think we're like, this is a little over the top. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on a photoshopped image like that. But I don't know. I don't know that I would hate on it. I don't know that I'd say that he shouldn't have the right to do that.
Maybe they don't care. I mean, maybe it's like.
I would disagree with
Do
that.
you have a problem with every song on the radio with auto-tune?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Absolutely
all
not.
right.
And so this is a great segue because we can now start talking about different genres of photography that really brought up this whole idea for this debate or discussion today. And I want to specifically talk about sports photography right now. We recently did a critique. It was me and Mike Kelly, and we critiqued this one shot of a building with this, on the top, it's this little bicyclist doing like a wheelie or a stoppie on top of this building, and it looks amazing. It's like, how the hell did he get up there? How much planning did this take? How dangerous is it? And then after we released the critique, I think I probably gave it 4 stars. The photographer wrote in the comments, oh, by the way, it's a composite.
you had asked in the
I had asked, and he said, hey, it's a composite. And I wrote back to him, oh, well, this kind of loses all value to me then. And some
2 stars.
people, it might be 2 stars. It might be a snapshot at that point of just like some building. It wasn't particularly that great. And so I have some example images that a buddy of ours took named Dave Lale. He used to be a professional snowboard photographer. Now he is a commercial photographer. But I found some old shots that he did. And I just want to pass around this shot. This one's kind of a low-res shot from a video that we did of Dave Lale like 7 or 8 years ago. I love this shot. He timed the snowboarder right in the middle of the sun. It was just took a lot of planning, an incredible snowboarder, an incredible photographer to get this shot. We were there for it. We know it was real. And how much would be taken away from this shot if we just removed the snowboarder from the shot?
And looked at it as a landscape photo?
As a landscape photo, what's it worth?
This would not be a very well executed landscape.
It would literally be a 1-star image, right? I mean, it goes from a 4 or a 5-star image to a 1-star image.
I don't know if I'd say on our scale, it could be a 2. It's like some
A
thought
1
went
to
into
2.
it, but it's not a great image.
Right. And so at that point, if it's so easy to take a silhouette of a snowboarder and just start putting them all over the place. We can put them in space with the space station, and we can put them on Elon Musk's Roadster that's flying to Mars right now, and we could put them over the top of Trump Tower, and people would go, whoa, what a crazy Photoshop. But nobody would care. The second that it's completely unrealistic, people just go, oh, it's Photoshop, anybody can do that. And it loses all value. And something else that I wanted to point out that Dave taught us is that when he shoots, and I'm interested to know if you know this, Keith, when he would shoot for magazines, he would get these insane shots where people are just flinging themselves off of these cliffs. And he would say, I cannot even send an image to publish if they didn't land the trick. So that shot right there, if they crashed at the bottom of that shot, he's like, I might as well delete it right on the spot.
Yeah, but how do you know which shot he crashed on?
He knows. He's like, that is.
You have to remember you shoot 50.
Maybe he's starring it or locking it or whatever as he's going. That was good. I mean, I know as a photographer myself, I'm shooting sometimes. I don't even know what's happening past the image that I shoot.
I wouldn't care if he landed or not.
I wouldn't care either.
Right.
But think about that level that he's at. We're like, no. Not only does it have to be real. He has to. The way he put it, he was like, anybody can fling themselves off a mountain, but only a real athlete can land it. And these magazines want real athletes in the magazines. So, would you guys agree with me that, at least when it comes to sports photography, I mean, have you changed your opinion with this genre, Patrick, that this should be real?
I think it depends on the use. If this is like going to be quote unquote fine art and you're going to put this on a wall, part of me feels like it should just be, how does the image make you, the viewer, feel? And if this makes you feel like this is my favorite sport and I used to do this and I love this athlete and that's my buddy, and you may or may not know that he landed it or it was photoshopped, like if this is a picture that's worth putting on your wall, then like what does it matter? But if now all of a sudden the commentary is about him and it's in a magazine and it's about the tricks he can do and maybe even this jump itself. You know?
It's like an editorial story.
Then all of a sudden I feel like, yes, it does kind of matter. So it really depends on like the use, you know? And I feel like you could do the same thing with photojournalism, you know? Like you could say like, what's the famous guy who added more smoke in Syria to make the bombings look a little more dramatic? And then he got fired because everyone realized he just like cloned the extra smoke in. It's like, you're still telling a story that needs to be told, but if you add just 10% more smoke, is it the end of the world? Well, the AP says it is, you know, and they won't run that, and in fact, they'll fire you, and then they'll never give you the credentials that you need to get back, you know, into shooting that kind of stuff. So,
I mean, like, if this guy can do this anyway, like, what does it matter if he landed that one trick? What does it matter if he is composited into that shot? Like, if he's known to do that, then like...
So, right. So the line for me has to do with advertising and editorial again. And I have another shot here. This one actually is a shot that Patrick took.
Uh-oh.
And this is from your famous wakeboard photo shoot here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were mad about this. But from my perspective, this is a total advertising shot. It's not really even trying to lie to the viewer and say, oh yeah, this was definitely taken on a lake.
Yeah.
He's on pitch black. It almost looks like it was shot in the studio. But to me, this goes back to what you were saying. It's about the mood and emotion and what it makes you feel more than it is Dale Sleer was here this day doing this exact trick.
It's a cool shot, and I would never look at this image and go, oh, someone got a well-lit flash photography and nighttime snow,
multiple boats,
water, or whatever. It never crossed my mind that this is trying to be a real shot.
So what happens though if this guy is composited in to a background that's light and bright on a lake, and it then becomes a little bit more realistic, believable?
Is that the next photo?
In my opinion, for advertising, it's totally fine. If you want to put this on, you know, a wakeboard that's for sale, it's like a pamphlet, or you want to put it on a poster at Dick's Sporting Goods, I think that fits perfectly there. But again, with these sports magazines, they have this code of ethics that it has to be real, and you have to land that trick. And so there's definitely a fine line when it comes to these sports shots.
So it's the expectation of the viewer. It's when you're picking up a magazine, an editorial, you expect the story to be completely true. Like it's selling you not just the verbiage, it's selling you the image as well. It's the media. When you're selling an advertising image, like you're not selling a specific moment or an experience, you're selling a product.
Yes,
assuming the experience isn't
or a
the
mood.
product.
Yeah.
I would disagree with this entirely, because imagine you pick up Sports Illustrated and there's a story on, you know, LeBron James. I don't know if we're going to talk about Dave LaChapelle, but imagine he shoots LeBron James and he builds this crazy fantasy set, and some of it could be real, some of it could be fake. Like, I don't know what Dave does in all of his images because they're so extreme. It's editorial use. It's still going to be crazy photography, maybe crazy Photoshop. Does it matter? Because then it's editorial and you guys are like, he wasn't really there. He's not, you know.
But what if he was photoshopped dunking over the top of somebody whom he's never done that to?
No, that shouldn't be in the... If it's like the snowboarder we were just looking at, if there was an article about the snowboarder and you decided, let's just move him up a little bit, which we could cut him out in 2 minutes and just slide him up a little bit more in the frame.
Yeah.
I think that's totally unfair. It's misleading that the snowboarder was at that moment in time.
Yeah, that's
What
like
if
an
what if
artistic...
what if you took a picture of a live event and you cut out LeBron James and you put him way up in the sky, and it's the story's kind of like an NBA Jam joke, and maybe the ball's on fire, maybe the ball's not on fire.
I think that still falls in line with the expectation of the reader.
Yeah,
like-
you're not trying to fool anyone.
I don't think you're fooling anybody. I think
Well,
it's
I
No,
think-
I'm
obvious.
saying that exactly. It's obvious in the point of the article. If the article is like LeBron James is miles above everyone, then like
Is that little play on words enough to cut him out and put him a little
no,
higher?
the ridiculousness of the photo is enough. Like the Peter Lick shot is the best example of this because it's over the top, but he still tried to do it in a somewhat realistic way with a telephoto-looking lens, and he tried to make it somewhat in the realm of reality.
Yeah.
There's a reason he didn't put two moons
I'm
in
not
there.
seeing it. I'm not seeing anything real about that photo.
You're not seeing anything real about that photo. Okay, fine. You don't see anything real about that photo. But there's a lot of other photos, for instance, like the guy who put the bike up on the roof. There's no possible way to tell that that's fake. But the only value that's in that shot is what's happening in the picture, the danger. Oh my gosh, unbelievable that a human being could do that. Well, they didn't do that. So that's where the line is. To make an artistic picture with LeBron James, you're not fooling anybody that like, oh, he won the finals when he didn't.
But I think there's still a line there to where if he's gelled with colored lights and, Greg Heisler shot it and it looks insane and interesting, like, yes, no one's being fooled. But let's pull it back a little bit and let's say he's now dunking over 5 defenders, and maybe they're all professional athletes, but it was shot in a way to like prove an editorial storyline. But it looks more real. It's like we actually went to the stadium, we did this, but we photoshopped, we put LeBron up higher. Like there's a line there too where like
Exactly.
And where is that
Exactly.
line for editorial use? I don't think it's that important. I think it's like I'm at the point now where I don't believe anything that I see. Like I'm
But
skeptical.
that's a problem too, yeah, because you'll be skeptical of every single reality in your life. You can't live that either.
But if I pick up a magazine about sports, like I get to watch the game on TV. That's my reality. So whatever's printed in the magazine, I'm like, it's telling a story. And
I mean, I'm not a big sports fan, but if Sports Illustrated runs a new story on the Super Bowl and there was one amazing catch and they just completely make it up and that catch never happened, there would be outrage.
I think another genre that might be a little more particular, that we could dissect a little bit better, is architecture, like, and the truth of the scene and the moment and whatever, because I feel like that hits on a little bit more, and which audience is viewing it versus expectations. Like, for instance, when we were in Hawaii, Mike shot a resort image, an architectural image of the resort, and he completely took out a bunch of pillars.
So in the tutorial, he claimed that he thought it would be okay to do this if the client either asked for it or gave him permission. And he also thought it was okay because as you walk through the area where he was shooting, you could see more of the outside.
it's a perception thing. When you're there in person, it feels more like the final image where the ocean's right there. But when you're actually there, there's a lot more blocking.
I don't have a problem with that.
You don't have a... Really?
Not really. I said that earlier on the phone about a house you want to buy is not like a house in Architectural Digest or something where you expect they're going to Photoshop out a wall outlet or something like that, and everything's going to be lit.
They're going to take the neighbor's house out?
No.
They could. I mean...
Yeah, and this is removing entire pillars, like architectural elements of the building.
This is a sales brochure, right?
That's what he aimed
yeah.
to do.
Yeah, that
So,
was kind of the...
Yeah, you need to make it as good as a photographer. You need to do whatever, make it look really good.
But people would always argue this, that like it's unfair if this was a house because I'm going to show up to the house wanting to buy this. Where my argument is, no, you're using the image to get the person to the house. And then once you're at the house, your real eyes decide
yeah,
whether
but there's
or
a
not.
line, man.
If you show up and there's no ocean, I have a problem with that. Or if there's a mountain in a...
Okay,
out a
but what
window.
if, I mean, what if this was someone's house? I mean, we'll get back to this specific hotel, but what if this was someone's house and there's this incredible view of the ocean? It's an ocean house, but in real life, there's a pillar in the way of the view from the kitchen. And you have removed the pillar so that you can see perfectly. I have a problem with that.
I don't know. Yeah.
And
But see, with that, you're trying to sell the house,
yes.
the actual property. This image, you're trying to sell the experience.
Right.
And I think that's what Mike's argument was, is having that view, like you're not going to be hanging out in the lobby.
Yes.
But having this view with where you can see out into the ocean, this is more realistic on what you're going to feel when you're there. But you're not selling people this property. You're not saying, hey, you're going to buy this multi-million-dollar building, and guess what? You can see the ocean from here.
Let me see the tablet here, because I've got some more Mike Kelly images that I think bring up some other good points. For instance,
Great that he's not here to defend himself.
that's right. So these shots that Mike took are obvious composites.
Are they?
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with this at
Not
all.
at all.
Because to me, it's obviously a composite. And maybe this is your argument about the Peter Lick shot, Keith, is that it's so obviously a composite that you cannot be upset. I would argue that 99% of people who walk in there think it's real because all of the other shots in Peter Lick's studio
But do they
are real.
care, really? Does it matter to them if they're spending that much on a print? Do they really care if it was done with one click of the camera?
I think so. And so we can get into this in a second, but I think as humans, we have the tendency to put more of a value on things that are hard. So if you listen to the new T-Pain song that is auto-tuned to hell, even though you might dance to it in the club, I would imagine that you do not put him on the musical genius level as Beethoven or somebody who can write classical music. Even though it might be the exact same amount of skill, it's just different skill. We tend to lean towards the old-fashioned
Do you mean
way.
to tell me people don't respect Britney Spears the same way they do Celine Dion?
Yeah.
That somehow it's a little cheaper because she might be
However,
less of an artist than...
They're both playing Vegas, and I hear they're both making tons of money. So that could lead to your argument that maybe people just don't care.
Right.
They know that it's Photoshop, and that's fine. I don't think that. And I think if that were true, that Peter Lick's salesmen and on their website, I think they would be a little bit more clear about how the images were taken. I think they're trying to keep it more secretive.
Like another genre is probably like the fine art, like people that really consider what they do to be a craft and it's one of a kind and only so many prints. I mean, it's kind of what Peter Lick's doing. You have like somebody like Gregory Crudson here that these images, when you first look at them, I mean, they're amazing photographs, don't get me wrong, but they don't call so much attention to them as compared to what's really going on behind the scenes. And so if you've seen the behind the scenes videos of these productions, they're like film shoots. He had to call the city and get them to stop this light and put the yellow light on and get the car there in the middle of the road. And he's going to have all the storefronts have their lights on and have the block blocked off so that there's not traffic in the street that he doesn't want. Like everything is meticulously planned out on this shot, you know, or this one here with the rain. I mean, that rain could actually be like a rain machine for all we know. That's the level he goes to. But because I know that, like you're saying, I kind of appreciate this more than if this was just a guy who lived in the neighborhood and it was raining and he saw this guy stranded and he just took a snapshot of it, you know?
I mean, I look at these shots and it's very easy to composite. So you are saying because they were...
Yeah, you seem like you are.
You're saying
the
because
opposite.
they're hard to do, they are more valuable right now. Like...
I mean...
I think so.
I think I would stand by, like, if they're harder to do, then they probably are more valuable, but only when you know that narrative to begin with. That doesn't mean that I'm, like, going back on what I said earlier about I don't care what anyone... Do whatever you want to do. That doesn't change the fact that whether or not it's more or less valuable. I
think it does. I think you were insinuating before that people can do whatever they want to their pictures.
And we, as the photo community, should not be so outraged and upset. That's all I'm saying.
The only reason that we would be outraged and upset is if the photographer or artist is trying to pull a fast one. It goes back to the sports picture. It's so simple to cut out a silhouette of a snowboarder and just paste them wherever you want. What's exciting about the picture is that, whoa, that really happened. So the fact that this guy is taking these unbelievable shots that are so complex, totally in camera, that does put more value. I don't know if it should put more value on it, but it does for me as well, because you can see the effort that was put into it.
But see, this brings up an interesting point, because I look at these images and I just think they're heavily photoshopped.
Right.
Because
right.
we've been so conditioned to view the world in that light now. As Patrick was saying earlier, I look at everything now and I just assume it's fake.
I would have
And
too.
so I look at these and I'm think, okay, cool photoshopping.
Did he waste a lot of time and resources doing this in camera when he could have just done it?
I mean, maybe so, but obviously the vast majority of people think he is a great photographer, and rightly so, because it's hard, because he did.
But it's
all this
also
effort.
so. The interesting thing about this guy, from what little I know, is he takes these crazy pictures and then sells them as art prints, right? The reason his art buyers are buying this, the reason there are collectors for what he's doing, is because of the story of how. Yeah. My argument with Peter Lick is, at least for the first few years, when I went into the studio,
he built a story and a narrative.
Yeah, it's all real. It's all on film. I do no post-processing. And then now he's changed it, and apparently, if you ask, they will say that some of the images are composite. So I have no problem with that. But when they don't make that totally clear, that's when it gets a little bit touchy.
Issue, yeah.
All right, so another photographer that I have here, I'm a huge fan of hers, is Natalie Leonard, and she's like a fine art / fashion photographer, and all of her sets and pictures are just over the top. And everything that I've seen her do with behind the scenes videos seems to be all done in camera. Now, I've gone through her website, and some of the shots seem to have some sort of compositing, but I mean, goodness, these shots are very much done in camera. And even if they weren't done in camera, the complexity of these shots are so impressive that I think they can kind of stand on their own with or without Photoshop.
So what's your angle here? Like what?
I mean, I'm just saying that there are photographers out there doing unbelievable things that are doing it in camera, and the art community does put a value on this above people who are just cutting things out and putting them together in Photoshop. Again, I don't know if that's how it should be.
So it sounds like now that you're agreeing that my Atlas in the Sun picture should be lauded a little bit more.
So I've got David's infamous Atlas picture on here as well. And the reason why I wanted to discuss this photo is because this is the perfect example to me of doing something the hard way, but then coming out with a poorly executed finished image. And so from my perspective, this shot would be better and it would be worth more composited, in my opinion. I know I am definitely the minority here, than doing it the hard way, because the final image looks bad. If you compare this to the other two photographers whose work we just looked at, which is unbelievable, who did it the hard way and much harder than this shot.
I would argue throw Peter Lick's moonshot in here.
There you go.
Like the sun's not even like round. There's no detail in it.
I mean, it's real though.
Yeah, I mean it is.
That's
real.
That's what makes it
worth so
much better.
Yeah.
So what do you think of this shot, Keith? All of us have talked about this already.
I appreciate this effort
Right?
a lot. I mean,
you can snack the image. I know it's not a final product. A good final.
I don't have really anything bad to say about it. I mean, I don't love it, but I definitely don't hate it. I think it's very well done. I know what you did to get this shot and the planning to get everything in the right spot. I appreciate this more than if you had Photoshopped Saturn back there behind him.
But can't you imagine an incredible photoshopped image with Saturn and some ripped guy, and you can see all the muscles, and he's holding up Saturn, and it would be an ad for...
Sounds like a Van Halen cover.
Or exactly. It would not be real in any way. Nobody would think it was real. But the finished image would be a work of art. This, to me, I would never look at this and say, man, what a piece of fine art that is. It looks like an experiment.
A test shoot.
A test shoot that didn't pan out, to me.
But you do look at this image and you think that's real.
Because it's bad. Yes. So for instance, like if there was like a skateboarder falling on the ground or something, I would never think to myself, now they probably shot the ground and then went in the studio and got the skateboarder falling on the ground, cut him out, put him right here to make... No, it's way easier just to shoot him. Yeah. So...
This actually sounds like a brilliant photo series of like people really hurt with extreme sport accidents, but they're all fake.
Right. But my point is, it would be way easier to take this shot and make it look this way than if I were to tell somebody who had never seen that, hey, try to make it look real in Photoshop. They wouldn't be able to do it. They would look too good, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
To me, it all just comes down to this intangible thing that people place on art that makes it more valuable because it was real or it was hard to do. And I don't know, most of the time I'm kind of cynical about it. I feel like it's kind of bullshit.
I have some images here of Danny Diamonds from some old posts that he wrote on Fstoppers. And I think his shots are perfect examples of what is possible with Photoshop now, not just in terms of blemish removal or like liquefying and making somebody look skinnier, but almost painting in lighting. So you can see the before and after shots here of some of the stuff that Danny's done, and he shoots people in very flat, boring light, and then in Photoshop he's bringing these images to life, you know? And I think in the very near future we're going to be able to add lighting completely, you know? We're going to be able to take a picture, it's going to be able to 3D map a person's face, it's going to be able to figure out where the light sources are, and then using Photoshop or whatever software it is, we're going to be able to add kicker lights and fill lights and hard lights and soft lights. And so it's all going to be fake at that point. But what I find interesting is how people get offended with like blemish removal and stuff. With all the other stuff that we're capable of doing and that's happening all the time, like you said, in the EU, you can't do like, is it liquefying body parts? Is that what they don't want?
I don't know where the line is, but it's definitely, you can't, they're trying to have it to where you can't manipulate.
I just find that really interesting because we can literally paint on a woman's face with makeup. Like they will take away any reality that there is that she is made of flesh and skin. That's totally fine. Nobody has a problem with that at all. But then the second you start removing blemishes in Photoshop, now that's too far. That feels very strange to me.
I feel like with the lighting, commenting on the lighting aspect of that and painting in, cameras capture anything. I mean, cameras capture the scene as they see it. And I feel like you can create that scene to look a different way. You can add the lighting. You can add the vibrancy on this side of the cheek. It's possible to do. It's just like hard, more difficult. It's easier to do that in Photoshop. So when it comes to taking things away, covering up the blemishes, be it makeup or in Photoshop, that you are changing the situation, the reality of it. Like maybe that makeup is supposed to take away the blemishes. That's the reality of the makeup.
What if it's an ad for something else like clothing? And they always make a big deal out of like, these models don't represent realistic women's bodies or whatever.
Sure.
So they all of a sudden ban Photoshop, but you're allowed to wear like Spanx that suck in all the fat, and you're allowed to take the very clothing that's being sold and pin it behind somebody's back so that it fits nice and tight, and you're able to put fake hair in their hair and paint on their face to take away all imperfections. But if you do it digitally, not allowed.
Well, that girl can walk off that set and go out and have a drink and look exactly like that. She can leave the pins in the back. She can have the hair extensions in. It is a sense of reality to some degree. Whereas, depending on how much you manipulate the pixels, maybe that's not a reality. It could be, if you had the right makeup artist. but it wasn't because I had to remove the blemish.
So, right before we sat down, I looked at the National Geographic guidelines, and like these images, you can dodge and burn and lighten things, but you can't add anything to it. You can't erase trash from the streets or improve an image. They want it to be real. You can change the lightness and the colors
The
slightly.
tricky slope you have to go down.
I mean, dodging and burning
That's
in
not tricky.
Photoshop
You
is
either
very different than it used to be in the past. I mean, a lot of people are removing blemishes now with dodging and burning rather than the clone stamp. You can do so much more with
when you
dodging
get into
and burning.
frequency separation and you start dividing out colors and textures, and I can dodge out the texture, which removes it in the blend. I don't know how National Geographic really defines that, because it is a slippery slope where.
There's no cloning or anything like that. They want it to look.
But
as
I
original.
could dodge the trash meticulously to where it's gone.
Yeah,
and I didn't move a pixel, but I made every shadow medium gray and every highlight medium gray to where you really have to look for it. It's not cloned out, but it's not there anymore.
I would imagine that they have to write something like that to make it simple.
They
have a code of ethics that they can't explain in words. But if they saw the before and after, they would say, "You've gone too far."
Like
Right.
I can look at this picture
Right.
of Danny Diamond right here, and I can see a mole in the middle of her nose there that's not there. But here it's there, it's just been dodged out.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's there, but you might as well clone stamp it out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's not that I think that's a wrong technique or that I don't agree with what Danny did, but it's such a nuanced way of saying you can dodge and burn, but you can't clone stamp. And you're like, well, if you're really good at it, you could still follow that guideline and be able to.
I've always thought that I felt it was okay to erase a blemish or something that's going to go away, something that's not permanent.
Yeah.
But freckles and moles and things like that, I'm very careful about altering someone. So, if they've got a mole on their face, that's part of the way they look.
But they could cover it with makeup.
If they cover it with makeup,
I think what you're saying right now is you're trying to make the client happy. So you wouldn't want to remove something that, if we're talking about females in particular, she had the ability to remove it with makeup. She chose not to.
Right.
So you don't want to make that decision for her.
Right.
But when we start getting into advertising, I kind of say anything goes.
But
Do whatever you
see
want.
a fleck of skin or something out of place,
Sure.
and it's obviously a red spot that is a blemish, take it out.
Sure. Well, I think if we could kind of condense all of this talking into one thing, it just has to do with the expectations of the viewer, like you said earlier. And if the viewer thinks that it's real and the realness of the photo is somehow wrapped into the value of the photo, that's when there is a problem. If Mike Kelly is shooting the lobby of a hotel and he's trying to show exactly what that hotel looks like for that hotel, I have a problem with it. But if he's trying to show like the overall vibe of come visit Hawaii, I don't have a problem with it at all. If Peter Lick wants to take an art picture and he wants to completely design it in Photoshop, I don't have a problem with that at all. But if he's trying to kind of hide that and mask it in with all of these other photos that were supposedly shot on a single, medium format frame, that's where I have a problem with it. And then, of course, when we talk about the sports photography, I think that's the clearest one. Having somebody flying off a cliff as this little ant in the air is incredibly impressive if it's real. And so if we see a shot like that, we just assume that it's real because photoshopping little ant people diving off places is the easiest thing you could possibly do. So I don't think that we've made a super clear line on what can be crossed and what can't be crossed.
But I'm sure the viewers on YouTube are going to have their own opinions, and we are going to continue this debate days from now when we go through.
Let us know in the comments how wrong we all are, and we will try to respond and feed the internet trolls a little bit. See you next time.